For the last few years, I focused my research, writings, and talks on what I call the cloud evolution. That is, not the technology of cloud computing, but the business repercussions. I talk about the change from IT to BT, from information technology focused on productivity to business technology focused on collaboration, enabled by Web 2.0 and SOA. I talk about how work works in the 21st century with BPM inside the cloud, but not BPM back office or rules-based or the things we often think of BPM, but BPM at the edges. That relates to adaptive case management and human interaction management. I also write a lot in research on the new innovation imperative, or what I call innovation's child. And finally, a subject dear to many of our hearts, the end of management. At least the end of management as we know it today. And the rise of self-organizing, self-managed bioteams. Today, though, I'd like to focus on adaptive case management. Where does it live? Where does adaptive case management actually take place? In the past, it might have been in places, call centers, help centers, research and development, certain staff functions, all focused on case management. Now it's gone from places to spaces in the cloud. So let's start with that. What is the cloud? Well, there ain't no such thing as the cloud. Cloud computing is not a new technology. It's not a new methodology. It's not a new architecture. It is, however, a new delivery mechanism that will have a significant impact on how we conduct business. And by the way, there is no such thing as cloud computing, and you're already a pioneer in cloud computing if, in fact, you use Google or Yahoo or any of the other ubiquitous resources that are already out there. So what? I like the way The Economist wrote about it a few years back. The cloud is more than just another platform that gets geeks all excited. Sure, it's going to transition the IT industry, but it will also profoundly change the way people work and companies operate. You know, as we write in Enterprise Cloud Computing, one big theme is already emerging is that businesses are becoming more like the technology itself, more adaptable, more interwoven, and more specialized. Well, these developments may not be new, but cloud computing will speed them up. The economic and innovation implications are game-changing because in the past, information technology was about productivity. Now it's about collaboration, a shared information base, and collective intelligence. The wisdom of crowds, social networks, and crowdsourcing. One shared world, one shared computer, one shared information base. It is no longer just available to large enterprises, but it's now available to small businesses and individuals alike who can use the world's largest supercomputer with a credit card. Well, so what? Well, cloud computing makes it possible to build new business operations platforms, dynamic platforms, operating system for business, a business OS, if you will, that will allow companies to change their business models and collaborate in powerful new ways with their customers, suppliers, and trading partners. Stuff that simply could not be done practically before. Well, let's go back and talk about before. We've lived in an industrial age for over 100 years. And we'd have to ask, what is the biggest innovation in those last 100 years? Many proffer that biggest innovation is not a product. It's an idea. It's an idea called management. That is the innovation of the past 100 years. As Dr. Sheen at the Sloan School quoted, Sloan's ideas were so correct that we have forgotten that they were an invention. Sometimes inventions come as not products, but ideas. And they are so significant that we actually forget they were inventions at one point in time. From Frederick Winslow Taylor to Alfred Sloan, and this guy named Peter Drucker, who spent 2 years with Sloan studying the insides of General Motors, they have created the basic DNA of what we call today management. They created things like pay per performance, capital budgeting, task design, divisionalization, brand management, and all the methods and tools of business that we take for granted today. As Professor Gary Hamel wrote, the problem they were trying to solve was how do you turn the human beings into semi-programmable robots? How do you make the farmhands from the agricultural age and the housemaids and the craftspeople to show up on time and tend to machines to do the same thing over and over and over again? Well, change. Big change from agricultural to industrial age. But now change itself has changed, and changed utterly. How much change have you seen in your lifetime? Well, this year, Walter Bruning, at 114 years old, finally passed on. But he was 8 years old when the Wright brothers fired up that first powered flight. Well, the thing about change is, if you look at the bottom of this graph, it's linear. We like that. It's gradual change. Humans love gradual change. They can think about what they're doing next Monday morning. But suddenly change reaches the knee in what's called an exponential change curve. Right now, unlike 100 years ago, in many facets of our lives, of our work, of our society, are being affected by exponential change. Just think of the number of internet connections, the amount of data out there, the number of mobile devices, the advances in biotechnology and pharmaceuticals. Just think of social networks, where Facebook, if it was a country, would be one of the most populous countries on the planet. Well, it's interesting what can happen in one lifetime. I'm pictured here with Dr. John Vincent Atanasoff in 1981. Who is he? He's the inventor of the electronic digital computer. Now, I'm not that old, but look at the change I've seen in my lifetime. You know, it's amazing. If you go back to 1950s, what we see here is a 1-ton hard drive being loaded into a Pan American's Airlines. Remember Pan American? It's to be installed in the IBM 350 Raymac, their first supercomputer. And by the way, that hard drive contains 5 megabytes of storage. Well, change. If we go back to the original assumption of what our management gurus taught and laid down, that's in the fabric of our enterprise, the problem today is, how do you make today's workers not do the same thing over and over and over again when change happens? How do you turn workers into creative problem solvers when each situation, when each case is unique, when new information is uncovered, when not best practices, but next practices are needed? Well, we're now today talking about creative destruction 2.0. We're talking about what happens in the world of global extreme competition when industry incumbents are now subject to competition from around the planet. We're moving from brawn to brains as the key capital resources. We're moving from knowledge management to new knowledge creation, from an innovation to setting the pace of innovation, from R&D labs to open innovation. That is, from inside-out innovation to outside-in innovation. We're moving from knowledge worker staff, those MBAs, those R&D researchers. We're moving from knowledge workers as a staff function to everyone being a knowledge worker throughout the enterprise. Well, let's look at some of these big shifts. You know, if we go back to 1800, 90% of the U.S. employment was based on agriculture. 4% was based on services. Today, go down to the year 2000. 2% is based on agriculture and 70% on services in 2000. But if we go up to the year 2010, according to an IBM research report, approximately 80% of employment in the U.S. is related to delivering services. And by the way, it's not just the U.S., it's most advanced nations, the United States, Germany, China, Russia, Look at these charts. We're seeing this huge shift from agriculture to industry to services. Well, what is a service process? A service process is a series of states that involves decision-making and experiences of the customer. The customer is a co-producer of value. Services represent unique challenges. They are complex. Each transaction is itself a new product. Services also contain both usability and emotional components. If we look at the characteristics, intangibility. There may be some combination of both tangible and intangible results from the process. Heterogeneity. Outcomes vary from one knowledge worker to another in the interaction with the customer. Simultaneity. Production and consumption coincide. We're talking about complex adaptive systems. And remember the bullwhip from supply chain where you had safety stock? No. When we're delivering services, it's all about perishability. The services are consumed immediately. They can't be stored. You can't have safety stock. Once the event or time has passed, the opportunity is gone forever. Well, let's talk about the radical innovation we need. We've had 100 years of the DNA from our godfathers of what is management. But let's talk about management innovation, of moving from command and control to connect and collaborate. And by the way, when you do this, that doesn't mean throwing out all the controls. It doesn't mean chaos. It means that transparency across the entire value chain becomes the invisible hand of management control. And I'm not kidding. In my book, Cloud, I describe what's happening at Whole Foods. The produce manager in my local Whole Foods market, he's in charge of who gets hired. Or he and his team, excuse me. They are in charge of what to order and when. If we look at Right Solutions, another case study we look at, Right Solutions wants to bring innovation in, and the way they do it is through an internal stock market. But instead of being mutual funds, it's mutual fun. They issue dollars throughout the company, fake dollars, and then people can propose IPOs on new ideas. And then those who throw their dollars at it, suddenly that IPO could become a reality. And the people submitting the ideas become part of the team and part of the reward structure for taking that idea to market. We see in India a $6 billion IT company called HCL. Their whole theory is employees first and customers second. At HCL, they use what's called reverse accountability. Every employee rates their boss and their boss's boss, and all those ratings are published online. In addition, any employee who disagrees with a decision can fill out a ticket. Here's my complaint. And the tickets are visible. They're transparent to the whole organization. And a particular ticket can only be closed by an employee. Any ticket that doesn't get closed within 24 hours is escalated to the next level of management. These are some of the upside-down pyramid structures that companies are using. And when it goes to innovation, it's no longer the R&D lab. IBM conducts innovation jams, where they bring sometimes hundreds of thousands of people together in Second Life and actually tease out a number of proposals, some of which finally get filtered down and are acted on. So from innovation to hiring to what to order to empowering employees in such a way they're really empowered versus a slogan in the break room is the way companies that are moving forward are learning to reinvent management. When exceptions are the rule, adaptive case management becomes the new norm. When 80% of the challenge and the work is handling the exception, and that moves, by the way, to 90%, sure, 10% can be handled by our systems, by our transaction systems, by our ERP systems. But the real challenge in business today is that 90%. It's handling the exceptions in this new world of instability. We're running a spectrum from transactions being handled through business process management systems in the back office, which are highly structured, all the way to unstructured worlds and unstructured environments and unstructured processes such as ACM and human interaction management, where the process itself emerges. And this is what is needed in this new world, the new world that Peter Evans Greenwood calls the new instability. So, who needs knowledge work? Who needs adaptive case management? Who needs human interaction management? Well, in a service economy, the bigger question is, who doesn't? Walmart, you would think they would be the last to think of low-level employees as knowledge workers, but this Tells On device is amazing. It reveals astonishing amounts of information, the quantity that should be on the shelf, the availability from the nearest warehouse, the retail price, and most amazing of all, it actually shows the markup, and all employees are given access to this information because in theory, at least anyone in the store can order a couple of extra pallets of anything and discount the item heavily as what they call a volume producing item, or VPI. Well, one employee recounted the story of test marketing tents that could protect cars for people who didn't have enough garage space. They sold out quickly, and several customers came in asking for more. This was an exceptional case, of course, and it was probably word-of-mouth marketing. So the employee ordered a truckload of the tents and later admitted, I shouldn't have really done this without asking someone because I was just a new employee. I've been here working for just a short time. But the item was a huge success, and his VPI was the biggest in store history. Not bad for a new employee, and not bad for the notion of every worker is a knowledge worker. I like the way Shakespeare put it, if we paraphrase him. All the world's a case, a unique case, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. Whoa, what's the future of adaptive case management? Well, where's the world of business going? Where are they talking about you? It's in social networks. They don't go to your website. That's the last place they go. They go out and talk about your products and your services. Well, now we're seeing the advent of what are called listening posts. Gatorade has its ground control. Dell has its ground control. They're listening posts going out to social networks to see how people are talking about them. Then they push them through very powerful predictive analytics. And today, what's happening, a case comes out of the network, the social network. And that's handled as a case, just like solving a customer's problem of hooking up their new TV or their new cable service. We now have cases that exist in social networks. And through technologies known as persona management systems, our case management becomes a form of automation, going back into those networks, unleashing in many cases sock puppets, trolls, and drones. Now, this is not something imaginary. Even the U.S. Air Force has adopted persona management systems to go out and shape the dialogues going on in social networks across the globe. So the bottom line, moving from information to business technology, the one key point is business technology is centered on the interactions of people and not the interactions of computers. So we're looking at a brand new IT stack. We're going to continue to have our legacy business systems at the bottom, systems of records, things handling our accounting and transaction processing. But we're also going to move into a new modern infrastructure in the cloud of platform and software as a service. We're going to be integrating legacy systems through service-oriented architectures. Then we're going to move to business process management of many flavors. There's good old-fashioned workflow. That's how we get transactions done and move things around and rules kick in. But the adaptive case management is a new area. And probably encompassing all of this, you could talk about human interaction management, because it's more, in many cases, than just managing a particular case. So at the top of the stack, next generation business systems will be built for change. They will be systems for people and they will be process-oriented systems, whether they're simple transactional processes or whether they're adaptive case management. So the bottom line is, the wow about cloud computing is not about on-demand IT. It's about on-demand business innovation. This is the new house we have to build. Our forefathers had created this invention called management. They built something where there was nothing before. This is the house we need to build today. This is the architecture of the future. At the bottom, we're still going to have our information technology, our legacy assets and current business operations. We're going to have service-oriented architectures, though, leading to new pillars to build this new future enterprise that's based on business technology. We'll need to master the architectures for dealing with social networks, demand supply chain, business networks. It's no longer monolithic supply chains. We're talking business networks, business rules management, next generation analytics, capability management to balance out innovation management, where we're dealing with weak and strong ties to create the future that doesn't exist today. It's not so easy to take those who built today and say, forget everything you learned. The unlearning is the hard part. We need something new. So when innovation management is brought in as a process, it must be balanced against capability management of the entire enterprise. So we end up with then dynamic, event-driven business process management with adaptive case management and human interaction management. That's the fundamentals of the new business architecture and mastering the unpredictable. So where are we? We better lead, follow, or just get out of the way, because yesterday it was the internet that created a huge disruption as we move from the industrial age to the knowledge age. Today it's the intercloud, interoperating clouds from multiple companies and beyond to social networks. So I'll just leave you with one thought. What can be done in the cloud will be done. And that thought is actually a question. Will you be the doer or the one done in? We can turn back to Peter Drucker for a little advice that's still current today. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Thank you.